spring playoffs. It's time for game 3, and this third place match between Denial eSports and Reason Gaming. But first, I'd once again like to welcome Dexter back to the desk now. Dexter, a bit more of a one-sided game, that one, from your eyes?
I think the picks and bans were in Denial's favor. The reason for that is Reason Gaming picked themselves into a situation where they have no wave clear against the Siege comp from Nidalee and was it Lucian? Yeah, Lucian.
Yep.
And yeah, I mean, at 10 minutes we saw the roam from Nidalee to bot lane. They just took the tower for free. And Lucian Nidalee is a pretty good Siege comp, and I really liked it. And the Xin Zhao made sure that Jax get going in the top lane. So if you have early game pressure in the jungle with the Jax at top lane snowballing, and to the point where Jax can just freely one-on-one anyone, you have like a 4-man unit, and then you have Jax split pushing on the other side of the map. And yeah, when Jax can one-on-one anyone, then the game is pretty much over, because Lucian and Nidalee can just siege for free every tower, and yeah, there's no coming back pretty much. If Nidalee's on the offensive once, then it's pretty hard to come back. And actually, I think that picking Vayne was a mistake too, because if teams have still the mindset of picking Vayne into team fights and going for early things, but after they saw the Jax, I think they shouldn't have went with the Vayne, because there's no way that Vayne can actually win a duel against Jax in the split push, and teams should use Vayne as a split push or against double tank combos. And yeah, Vayne has no siege. She's not that great in pick comps, unless you're like SKT1. They play pretty well in pick comps and rotations. But
they're only the world champions.
Yeah, they're the world champions. But it's really, really hard to get to that style where you can just rotate into a lane and assassinate people with Vayne. For that purpose, I think that maybe picking Kayle would have been good for a bit of wave clear, or maybe Sivir. Sivir has good wave clear too. And actually, Sivir is really good in pick composition. So I think if they had Sivir maybe, combined with the LeBlanc, it would have been a better choice for them, for sure.
So let's talk, I know we've discussed the picks and bans and how a lot of the challenger teams have had holes and weaknesses.
Yeah.
We asked you about Babunia in the previous game. We were talking about those top lane champions. We've seen again that Ryze and the Mundo banned out. In my opinion, not ideal. I feel that Babunia currently is playing very well. What's your take on that heavy banning? 2 games in a row that we've seen, that Mundo ban. We've seen that priority saying, look, we don't want you on it, but Babunia is still performing.
I mean, the priorities are still the same from the previous patch. Like, Renekton is top-tier champion for lane bullying. But, yeah, Jax is pretty good too right now. So it's really hard to outban top laners, and I don't think bans should be focused on top lane, except you don't want to deal with a certain champion, for like Ryze, for instance. But in general, I think you have Jax, you have Renekton, you have Shyvana, and they all kind of counter each other in a way. And if you have a jungler like Xin Zhao and Elise, there's a lot of action going on the top lane. So whoever plays it out better, has the better mechanics in the 2-on-2, will win. And yeah, I think that Renekton and Jax is gonna be a really common matchup in the upcoming weeks. So yeah, there's not much else to pick, I think.
What about the duo lane? Because you've seen this constant trouble now, the double summon a heal, plus the heal from Kayle. They've got sustained pretty much all day long in that bottom lane. What do they have to play against that? When we saw Karma this time around try and poke them back, but they just heal it back up.
Well, the fact that Lucian is probably like the best laner in the 2-on-2 scenario right now makes it really hard for Vayne to even go through lane properly. So I think Caitlyn is a pretty decent pick against Lucian, and maybe even Corki. Corki is good too, and it got picked by Koreans and some of the NA teams as like a counter, not a direct counter, but a lane matchup that can do well against it. So I think that I don't think that any team of them practiced Corki yet, because it's like a really new pick coming out. So yeah, I think maybe even banning Lucian is the option here. So Lucian is pretty good, and I wouldn't wait. Like, if I have to deal with a really good Lucian player, I would probably just ban it.
What's your take on Kayle? Because I feel like this game was probably the best case Kayle scenario. There was a lot of pick, single target damage coming in from Reason, and I think that sitting on the side of Super Ace, he played his interventions well. Up until this game, I haven't been convinced. I've been very critical of the Kayle. What's your take?
The problem with Kayle is she doesn't provide anything but the ultimate. And later, like, it's really, really hard to get. If you have a really good 2-on-2, and you know that the enemy plays the matchups properly, Kayle has a really hard time going through laning phase. I can assure that, especially against like Leona or something, she won't really go through laning phase without being punished. She has no mobility. I mean, she has heal, sure, but the intervention is pretty good. But yeah, she doesn't really offer that much.
We've seen that this week already.
Yeah.
Against Kayle's, Super Ace has really struggled.
Yeah, I think Sona is better. Like every other support, I would pick every other support over Kayle personally. But
yeah. But then if if her only thing in the late game is to give you that intervention, which is great against single target, why, and this was the first pick Kayle, by the way, why would you pick so much single target damage into a Kayle?
Well, it's just a support pick. You can't really build team comps just to avoid a certain support pick, because then it's like, okay, what are we doing?
Yeah.
But I think poke is a really good answer against Kayle, and maybe if they can play poke and get the Nidalee for themselves or something against Kayle, then it's no problem. But lane swapping against Kayle doesn't really do anything too. I mean, you give Kayle a free lane, right? But I think you should emphasize your ganks on bot lane, on Kayle. Kayle has like 0 mobility, you can just punish her over and over again pre-6. And even after level 6, when she has that intervention, she still dies because it's nothing.
It's not enough.
It's not enough.
So, as a last question, going to game 3,
Yeah.
you predicted, you said you were siding with kickers, you said you had faith in Denial. We're hoping for more games. So, what does Reason Gaming need to do to bounce back from being 0-2?
I think they have to ban out signature champions like Nidalee and Lucian, maybe. Yeah, that's the only answer I have.
Is that? Well, we'll see. I mean, we're about to get in picks and bans, so hopefully they feel the same.
Thanks a lot, Dexter. We'll be hearing a little bit more from him later on. Obviously, we have maybe one more game to go in this best of 5, but at least another